There we go. Hey, welcome everybody to tonight's Zoom live workshop here at Quattro Cinco Studios. I am Hex-Ray Vision, and every week we get together and I try to give a simple explanation of what Hex is, how it works, and then after that I go over what's happened this last week and answer any questions as best as I can. A few of the disclaimers. Don't risk more money than you can handle losing, meaning if you have if you need this money in the next 2 years for necessities or emergencies, then I would not put it into any investment, even cryptocurrency. So that's the first disclaimer. Second disclaimer is that if you guys make money, you get to keep it. If you lose money, then you also get to keep that experience. So I don't make anything or lose anything based on your decisions. So be responsible, and you're obviously responsible for your own actions. The third thing I would say is definitely when you set up your MetaMask wallet, make sure that you write down those 12 words by hand. Make sure that you write down your password, and you make probably more than one copy and keep them in safe places. Because if you lose those words and that information, then you can lose your money, and the money could be worth a fortune in the future. So make sure that you write those down and keep them in a safe place. The next thing I'd say is the thing that I get out of this is basically, if I can reach enough people, if I can reach a million people and get a few $1,000,000 more invested into Hex, then the Hex that I own is going to go up in value. So that's the selfish part of this. And then the unselfish part about this is I've seen a lot of people's lives improved and blessed by taking action on some of this information. And so I would like to see as many people's lives improved as possible when it comes to finances. So that's about it. That's what I get out of it. Those are my disclaimers. It is cryptocurrency. It can go up 90% in a day, and it can drop 90% in a day. So like I said, your day-to-day money that you use for bills and necessities, keep it out of investing, especially cryptocurrency. So that being said, I usually don't talk about this, but anyone that has heard about Hex in the last 2 years or is learning about it currently, anyone who's hearing about Pulse Chain is really in a very special place at a very special time. Imagine if you were in the room and when something like electricity or running water was invented, and you had an opportunity to buy stock in just those ideas and those revolutionary changes in our world. That's really the what we're seeing right now. Is we're seeing the evolution of money. And so that being said, if you are in here right now listening to my voice or listening to any of the other hexagons and people about Pulse, you're in a very special place, and you're going to look back at this, I believe, and really be like, wow, that was something amazing. I can't believe I was there at that time, and I learned about that so early on in its development. So congratulations, first of all, for being privy to this information, and congratulations if you're taking action on it, of course. That being said, let's just go into what Hex is and how it works. Very simply put, cryptocurrencies are money that is verified and lives electronically. It doesn't get issued by a bank or a government. It gets issued by computer code. And what gives it value is the fact that people agree that it has value. There's a security aspect of it where you may believe that it's secure based on the math and the computers that are running the security for it. So that's one thing that may give it value, but basically what gives it value is the fact that you and I agree it has value. And actually, that's the essence of all money. All money has value because more than one person believes that it has value. And so cryptocurrency is simply money that lives on apps on your phone or apps on your computer, and that's how you move it around or take possession of it or trade it for another type of money and currency. About 11 years ago, or maybe 12 now, Bitcoin came out. Bitcoin was the first widely used cryptocurrency that people used electronically. And it basically allowed people to send money to someone else. And it also allowed people to provide security on the network with their computer power. And if they provided security by keeping all of the records straight, so to speak, then you were rewarded in Bitcoin. So you could send Bitcoin and you could receive it as a reward. And honestly, not much has changed in the last 11 or 12 years. Those are still the main two functions of it. And the reason that it's gone from a fraction of a penny to tens of thousands of dollars is because of speculation. People are speculating that this value or this money will grow in value and that more people will see value in it over time. So really, it's people betting on the fact that it's going to go up, and more people have bet on that fact. And that's why it's gone from fractions of a penny up to tens of thousands of dollars. Now, Hex came about 2 years ago. A man named Richard Hart founded it, and he looked at Bitcoin. He'd been involved in Bitcoin and been using it for a long time. And basically, he said, instead of paying these people to use their computers to secure the network or to secure the records, why don't we pay people to lock it up and not sell it? And that would have the same effect on price. So as you guys know, when the supply of something goes down and the demand goes up, the price of it goes up, such as housing in the last few years. Part of the housing thing is inflation, but also the demand for housing usually drives prices in an area. So like he said, if you lock up your coins and promise that you're not going to sell them, then you're going to get paid this reward of the coin as it's minted or as it comes into existence. So that's basically what Hex is. Hex is a coin that you can buy on an exchange. And then you can lock it up and you're paid interest. You're paid more interest the longer you lock it up. And that's the most simple way that you can put cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and Hex. Now, one of the problems that we've had recently with Hex is that the fees that we pay to keep our records straight have been going to a network called the Ethereum network. And Ethereum is the network of computers that are keeping track of the contract. When you lock up and promise not to sell your Hex, it keeps track of that contract and that record from the day you lock it up to the day that you unlock it. And we pay this network a fee to keep this record for us and to run the contract. And a couple of years ago when Hex came out, the fees were really cheap. They were, a penny to 50 cents. And recently, the team and developers that have ran Ethereum have raised the fees, and the network has gotten busier. So now a lot of people are paying $500 to $600 to end a contract or to unlock their Hex. And it's costing $20 to $100 just to move the money from one place to another. And so because of this, it stunted the growth of Hex and the ability for us to use these contracts and make money off of the interest, because what we were making in interest wasn't as much as we were paying in fees. So we were actually losing money to fees based on how long you locked up your Hex for. And so Richard Hart, the same founder of Hex, is currently founding another network called the Pulse Chain Network and that's the network that we can run our Hex on in the future. And that will be a cheap and fast network that we're all looking forward to. And it's also an opportunity to speculate and invest on a new coin, a brand new coin that's never been around. And the reason this is exciting and interesting is because 7 or 8 years ago, the Ethereum coin came out, and the Ethereum coin came out for, 3 to 15 cents if you got it at the beginning, and less than $1 for quite a while. And that coin was, just like Bitcoin, people speculated and gambled on what this coin would be worth in the future. And they also use this coin to pay the fees on that network. So with those two things pumping the price of Ethereum, it went from less than $1 to over $4,000. And so now it's been bouncing between $3,500 and $4,500 recently. And so if you look at the growth of that network and that speculation, and you look at the new opportunity on the Pulse network, you can kind of get an idea of how much the Pulse coin could rise in value, because not only are people going to speculate on it and use it as a network, but it also is going to perform better and have a better efficiency than Ethereum. So we're hoping that it's more in demand and will rise in price faster. So that being said, you're in such a beautiful place. You're in a sweet spot right now, a spot where the hex has been working the way it was supposed to work for the first 2 years of its existence. And today, I mean, it's 14 cents. So, I mean, that's great, because it's been as high as 50 cents. And I believe it will, go back up to that amount and go higher. And the other great thing about this moment in history today is that if you have coins, both locked and unlocked hex coins on the Ethereum network, you're going to get a copy of those coins on the Pulse chain network. So basically it's like a stock split, if that makes sense to you, where you have a certain number of stocks and overnight your number of stocks double. So obviously the dollar amount is going to adjust, and it's going to be bouncing up and down and going all over the place. But over time, I believe that all these coins, the hex on both the networks and the new Pulse coin that's coming out, I believe they're going to go up dramatically in value. Not only will they go up in value, but you can earn interest on all three of those coins. You can earn interest on hex on the Ethereum network, you can earn interest on hex on the Pulse chain network, and you can earn interest on the Pulse coin when it comes out, because you'll be able to lock it up and allow other people to use that to take care of the network and to keep the records straight. And because you allow people to use your voting rights in that new system, they're going to pay you interest. So there's so many opportunities coming out right now, and a lot of people in the space, a lot of people in the community of hexagons are kind of freaking out. They're kind of depressed because they saw the price of hex go from 50 cents all the way down to 14 cents tonight, right? And so they're feeling, like this money that they had in their head is now less. But the truth is, unless you sell it, it's an unrealized gain, right? Or an unrealized loss, depending on what price you bought it at. So the truth is, right now is actually a really beautiful time, aside from the fees. The fees are the only thing right now that really are not cool. I just bought some hex before we started recording tonight, and the fees to buy hex tonight were $137 worth of Ethereum. Now, I would rather put more of that $137 towards hex than to give it to pay some fees. So from an investing point of view, those fees are taking their toll, and they're keeping people that don't have a large amount of money to invest. It's keeping them out of this opportunity, because they have to save more money longer in order to pay the fees and still end up with some hex for their investment. So that being said, all of that, which I'm pretty sure most of the people watching right now have been around and understand most of these concepts. But for anyone brand new, even if you hear this video in a month from now, you're so lucky, in my opinion. You're so blessed to have this opportunity to take advantage of something that's brand new, So that being said, let's talk about some of the stuff that's happened this week. We've been waiting for the testnet version 2 to come out on Pulse chain, And those are some of the things that need to happen before Pulse Chain can come out. So some of the things that we're waiting for are the test net. We're waiting for the bridges to be tested. We're waiting for the interest that gets paid to be tested. And the bridges is another way of exchanging or moving money from one place to another. And then we're also waiting for the validators, or the people that are working on this network, that are going to keep track of all of our money, and they're going to keep track of all of our contracts when we lock and unlock things. We're going to make sure that those 4 things are all tested and battle proven, so that when it goes live, that we don't have to worry about bugs and hacks and losing our money. So those are the 4 main things that we're waiting for right now. I had the opportunity to sit and talk with a really cool dude named David Feeder, and he's in IT, and he's quite the technical genius, I would say. He understands a lot more than I do when it comes to computer code and programming. And he explained to us how these validators and how this system would work. He explained to us why it would be faster and cheaper than Ethereum. He explained to us what would happen the very moment that the new network goes live. So the analogy that we came up with was, imagine you're driving down the road, and at a certain mile marker is where the exit is, to where you can fork off and go onto a new road. And so we're waiting for that mile marker to be announced. So when all our ducks are in a row, when everything's working correctly without any problems, then they're going to announce that at this specific time, on this specific date, the new network is going to fork or branch off of the Ethereum network. And that's something that we're all very excited about. There was a pre-sale a couple months ago that a lot of us were able to put money into. We were able to send our cryptocurrency or our money into an address or a place that kept track of how much we sent from our address to its address. And we were really, really hoping that that would come out. I mean, I was hoping and expecting it to come out in October. And obviously it's been delayed, because here we are in the last couple of weeks coming up into Christmas, and we're still waiting for it. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen this month. Hopefully we're crossing our fingers that it'll come out next month. But there's another thing that is going to be coming out a few weeks before the Pulse launch chain, or the Pulse chain launch. And that is going to be another pre-sale for yet another coin. So there's going to be a coin that is going to be issued for an exchange, so that you can trade one type of coin for another, one money for another. Right now, the exchanges that we use, like Uniswap, we pay them a fee. I mean, on top of the $137 fee that I paid to Ethereum, I also paid probably about $20 in my dollar coin to the liquidity provider. So somebody provided the hex and somebody provided the dollar coins on this exchange for me to trade back and forth. And because they provided those coins to the exchange, they got a fee. They got 10 or 20 bucks just for making sure that there was enough liquidity and enough coins on that exchange for people like me to trade back and forth. And so on this new network, the Pulse network, you're going to have, excuse me. Oh yeah, sweet Dr. Pepper. There we go. You're going to have another exchange that allows us to trade the Pulse coins for the hex coins, for one hex coin for another coin. So there's going to be all this trading going on between the coins, and the people that provide the liquidity are going to be paid in these coins. And so there's going to be a new coin that's created that runs that ecosystem of the exchange. So they're going to do a pre-sale of these coins coming up, and they say that that pre-sale should be 3 or 4 weeks before the main launch. So part of us are excited for another chance to buy a pre-sale of a coin that we believe is going to go up in value. And I am, But I'm more excited that when we see that happen, we're closer to the Pulse launch and closer to doubling our coins and closer to getting rid, not having to pay these crazy fees. So you'll always have to pay the Ethereum fees with Ethereum on the Ethereum network. There's really not much that we can do to change their minds or fix them. I will say that when the Pulse network comes out, it may alleviate some of the pressure and the traffic on that network, and that may bring some of their fees down. But we really don't know, to be honest. That's what we're hoping for. Let's see, anything else? I'm trying to think of the other things that we learned about this week that we didn't know about prior. And that's a lot of it. A lot of it is the Pulse chain or the exchange coin swap pre-sell that we're looking forward to, and the time horizon and the 4 things that need to be done before the Pulse chain network comes out. So that being said, I'm sure you guys can bring up some more things. Does anyone else have any other announcements that they've heard that I've missed that we can talk about? You can go ahead and unmute your mic, or feel free to type in the chat as well if you don't want to come on and talk on your microphones.
So Max, I have a question.
Yes.
What is going to keep the hex on the Ethereum network doing well if all of this stuff is moving to the Pulse side and going to have less fees? Isn't that going to make it not as wanted?
Yes, I believe it will have that effect, Ryan. Especially, and thank you for the question. That's a great question. First of all, I was going to say a lot of the people, like I said, if your locked up money is worth $200 and they want $600 to get it out, it doesn't make any sense to use the Ethereum network. So for the little guy, and when I say little guy, I'm talking about the turtles and below, which I should probably explain turtles to people that aren't familiar with the C leagues that they got going on. So basically they have C leagues in the Staker app, which is well, now I got to explain Staker app. So there's a Staker app on your phone that does allow you to buy and lock and unlock hex. I use it more for a way to check my balances and check my interest. But on that app on your phone, they have leagues in the ocean, so the more interest that you're earning with your locked up coins, the bigger the animal they classify you as. So they have whales, they have sharks, they have dolphins, and turtles and so forth. And so the people that have lower amounts of money and are earning less interest, like I said, people that have $200 to $2,000 in most of their contracts locked up. These people, it doesn't make any sense for them to stay on Ethereum if the fees are high. Now, a lot of them are locked up for up to 15 years. And in 15 years, I believe that the longer stakes are going to be worth paying for to get out, even for the little guy. But the shorter stakes for the little guys, it's not worth going in and paying that fee to get that money out. So on the Ethereum side, a lot of the smaller and shorter stakes are not going to have any value. They're not going to have enough value to pay the fees to Ethereum. And so a lot of those smaller stakes and shorter stakes are going to be moved over, and those people will be using the Pulse chain network because it's faster and cheaper, and they can actually get their money out and improve, use it as an investment. But in the long term, on Ethereum, even if it dips originally and goes down in value because all the little guys are moving over and a lot of the liquidity and unlocked coins are going to be moved over to where you can afford to move them and lock them and unlock them. In the long term, there's millionaires and billionaires that are locked up on Ethereum. I mean, these are people that spend, I saw this on a really good YouTube channel. I can't remember who said it because I like to give them credit, but they said these are people that eat $500 lunches, they don't care about a $500 fee to move their hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars out. And these contracts are worth millions and billions of dollars to some of these people. So as far as that's concerned, the rich guys are going to stay on Ethereum, and eventually they'll hold the price of Hex up on Ethereum. But in the meantime, I agree with you, Ryan. The little guys, the shorter guys, the people with that, you know, $20 is a big deal for them to pay it in fees. Those guys are definitely going to be moving over to Pulse. So I think that Pulse will see an initial bounce in price and a lot more activity in this in the short term for sure.
So is that an option for us to move our staked stuff over, or is it stuck on Ethereum?
Right now, it is stuck on Ethereum. It's possible that they'll be able to come up with technology and code that allows it to move over. Earlier, I mentioned a bridge, and a bridge is one way to destroy a coin on one network and make it appear on another network like magic, right? And so there are people that do move their coins from one network to another, and so they basically destroy a token on one network and then mint a new token in its place on the other. Now we haven't seen that in the locked up hex, but we have seen that in just coins already before the Pulse chain network showed up. So those bridges are one of those things that are going to be showing up, where we'll be doing tutorials and explaining to people how to move their coins over to a cheaper network or a faster network. So we'll be covering that when it occurs. But the good news is that even though right now and in the near future, I don't see you being able to move the locked coins over yet, you still get a copy of those locked coins, right? So if you got a copy on those coins and that one takes off, I mean, especially when you use 2, 5, or 10 years of leverage and price appreciation to your advantage, these coins can be worth much more than you and I can wrap our heads around right now. Because I mean, there were people that were speculating and gambling on Bitcoin at less than $1. And if you would have shown up 11 years ago and told these guys, hey, those coins that you're buying for less than $1, they're going to be worth 60 grand one day, they would have, you know, they would think that you were crazy, and there's no way they would accept that as truth. But that's what happened over 11 years, right? So in 11 more years, we may be getting, besides the copy that we're getting on the Pulse chain, we may be getting more copies of our coins, both the locked coins and the unlocked coins, as more networks sprout up and as things change and develop, you know, in the space. That's a really good follow-up question. So thank you for both of those questions. Does that answer it? Do you want me to flesh any part of that out some more?
No, that's good.
Awesome. Thanks for the question. You got some more questions, right? Anyone else? Any other questions or anything that you've noticed has happened? I mean, obviously we had our 2-year-old birthday. So Richard Hart, the founder of Hex, had a party in London, and a bunch of people had parties in New York. And it was I had like 2-month notice, and I didn't feel like going to those two. It looks like they had a wonderful time. I was really hoping for a big announcement on the test net or on the Pulse chain, but really it was just a bunch of crazy hexagons having a wonderful time. And in a way, that's really good for us because they come home energized and ready to add to the community. You know, there's going to be a bunch of them coming back that are going to start their YouTube channel. They're going to be on Twitter more often. They're going to go talk to their friends and family with more excitement. And so it's, even though it didn't look like a big deal, both those parties are both really good for our community, I believe. So that's another announcement is happy birthday, Hex, for being 2 years old. Do you got something, Andrea or
Yeah.
Kenny? Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm, curious about this new Pulse swap. I know it's not going to be called Pulse swap, but whatever he decides to name it. But how is that going to be the same or different than the sacrifice that we currently went through with Pulse? What's that going to look like?
That's a really good question. In fact, they haven't come out with a lot of details about the sacrifice or the pre-sale for the exchange coin yet. But Richard Hart did mention 5 or 6 coins that he would accept or that he's planning on accepting for that. Another thing is that right now there's a lot of projects coming out with Pulse in their name, and they're tricking people into investing in their projects just because they have Pulse in their name and for no other reason. And these aren't affiliated with Richard Hart. They're not, vetted by any of the OG hexagons that have been around for a while. They're just people tricking people into giving their money because they hear Pulse and they're like, okay, this is going to be big because it's part of Pulse, when in fact it's not part of Pulse, right? And so I heard Richard mention to Hexologist on a stream in the UK. He said, look, first of all, it's better to buy something at a pre-sale than later, because we're most likely going to be using these exchange coins for exchanging stuff and moving it around, right? So it's better to pay less for that than more, obviously. And it's always great to buy something at its lowest and hang on to it and watch it rise, right? He also mentioned that a lot of people, if they find something good that they can invest in, they don't have that money to invest in the bad stuff. So he said, I'm basically kind of trying to save people from themselves in another decent project. And it's also a project that's going to have to be put together for us to use, right? And so that being said, the Pulse swap or the exchange coin, the reason that we're not going with Pulse swap is I guess they couldn't get a hold of the pulseswap.com name. So they're going to have to come up with another name that's the same thing. But either way, yeah, they'll probably come. I'm sure we'll hear a lot about it beforehand, but they'll probably say, just like the sacrifice phase for the Pulse coin, they'll probably say, okay, from this day to this day, you can send these coins to these addresses and you'll get a certain number of points, if you will. And those points will be translated into coins when it goes live. So other than hearing the handful of coins that he wants to do it, and knowing that it's supposed to be several weeks before the main network launch, I don't have a lot of solid information on it yet.
Okay. So I know you're not a financial advisor, so, but are you planning on sacrificing in the new sacrifice round? And would you encourage people to sacrifice if they're able to?
I'm definitely going to be putting some money into that pre-sale, but I put so much money into the sacrifice for the Pulse coin because we thought that we were only going to have to wait a couple months for it to come out. And so that money is locked up, right? I have this bunch of money that's locked up, and I wish I had some of that dry powder left now. So going into this next pre-sale, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to put some money into it, but I'm not going to put everything I can afford to into it. I'm going to put maybe half of what I originally thought I would put into it, because you never know how long those 3 or 4 weeks could actually be. They could be 2 months, like we've seen, where things get delayed. So I would put less money into it. But then at the same time, because I have Hex and Liquid Hex, and because I'm going to have Pulse, those are other forms of dry powder that I can use to buy whatever is dipping or whatever is on sale. So my strategy has more to do with moving coins that have gone up over to coins that are crashing, a portion of them over, instead of, taking money out of my dry powder account and trying to buy everything. I'm going to be trying to, they call it swing trading. And it just depends on how much money you have. If you have a lot of money and you can eat the fees and it makes sense to move it every little jump or every little dip, that's great. But if you have a smaller account, like a lot of people, you might want to wait until one of them is much, much lower than the other, and then take 10% from something that's doing good, move it over to something that's just dropped, and vice versa, right? You just keep doing that over and over again, and you're keeping it in 3 or 4 coins that over time, or you believe over time, are all going to rise in value. And so, yeah, that's kind of my strategy, or the way I would look at the next pre-sale. And then obviously when things go live, everything's going to go crazy. You're going to have stuff spiking and dropping and crashing all over the place because they're all trying to find their footing. And so when that happens, you can probably sit, at the exchange and just, oh, this has gone down a ton. I'm just going to move some money over here and so on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, we sacrificed everything we had liquid for the Pulse sacrifice. We actually have quite a bit liquid now that we're really just kind of waiting for your advice on, what we should do, because, we value your opinion. So I'll text you and we'll come up with a game plan at some point, but I'm excited for it. And then the other thing is I have a lot of family that they missed the Pulse sacrifice. They're holding Hex right now liquid. Do you think that it's a good game plan for them to sacrifice what they do have for the new sacrifice round?
I think that you could sacrifice. I would maybe take half of it and sacrifice for the next round.
Okay.
But the truth is, whatever you can afford to lock up for the maximum, which is 5555, which is the longest that you can lock up your Hex coins, is a little over 15 years, right? And even though the fees are insane right now, and even though Ethereum is not looking great on by itself as a network, anything that you can afford to lock up for 15 years is still a great deal, because you're going to get a copy of that on all the forks going forward. And even on Ethereum in 15 years, those coins could be worth whatever it costs, whatever you'd be spending to get them unstuck in 15 years. So, whether that's $50 that you can just pretend doesn't exist for 15 years, or $100 or $1,000, the 5555 stake or the 15-year lockup is a great deal because of the way that the T shares work, and in Hex, you get paid interest based on how many shares you have. And so the shares are harder and harder to get, and you have to lock up more and more Hex to get those shares every single day, because the price ratchets up, but it never ratchets down. And I know that's like, if you're hearing this for the first time, it took me months to wrap my head around the shares and how they get more expensive over time. But anything you can buy today and lock up today, you're going to look back at the shares you get and be like, holy cow, because in the future, you'll never get that same deal on the interest bearing shares. Right. So if these people have enough to lock up for 15, I say maybe take half of it and sacrifice, and half of it and lock it up 15 years, because it saves you from yourself. There's so many people that bought Bitcoin under $1 or $10 or $100 or, $300, and they sold it at 1,000 because how could they resist? But if they weren't able to sell it at 1,000, if it was locked in, what are those things they did in elementary school, the time capsules, they used to lock up like some stuff in a time capsule, bury it, and then go, or put it in a wall and then go back 15 years later and make fun of how goofy everything was. If people had locked up their Bitcoin in where they couldn't get to it, and now they were receiving this Bitcoin, they would be so happy. And in 15 years, I believe that you're going to be really, really happy for everything you locked up for the future to pay yourself in the future.
Okay. Yeah, that's good advice. I wasn't sure how to advise, them, because, they don't have a ton. They've only been able to buy a little at a time, but trying to come up with a strategy, do you keep your coins liquid? What do you do? Because I think that their plan was to keep everything liquid so that they could buy Pulse when it comes out.
Sure. Yeah. And that's a great strategy, because even though the price of Hex has been suffering as of lately, you've seen it when it pops, and when it pops fast, and as soon as it breaks its last all-time high and really goes for it, it usually like doubles in price. So keeping it in hex, I think, is a great advice for these people. And then again, going forward, when Pulse comes out and the fees are cheap, then they'll understand, because you don't really understand the shares until you watch them. When you lock and unlock and then try to relock again, and you're like, oh, I'm not getting half the interest I used to get because of those shares being ratcheted up. That makes a big difference. And until you experience for yourself, it's really hard to wrap your head around it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. Kenny, you got anything? Ryan, you got anything?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Max, when this splits, I watched a little bit of the video that you was on, the one before this one on YouTube. When you three were talking on there. I didn't watch all of it, but I'm just wondering if you know what it'll look like when this stuff is cloned. Will the clone show up in your MetaMask folder, or how will that look? Do you know?
Yeah. In fact, at the top of your MetaMask wallet, there's a little thing that usually it says Ethereum mainnet. And if you click on Ethereum mainnet, it drops a bunch of networks down that are mostly test networks for people to try out their new coins and the new contracts. But you might have to manually add that. Like I said, if you go back to that video and you look in the comments, or sorry, in the description, I actually added the link that tells you how to set that up on your MetaMask. So right now you can actually set up the test network on your MetaMask, and it'll like give you a couple of fake Pulse coins right now, and you can try sending them to someone else, and you can see what the fees are. The fees are just fractions. Like, it's a fraction of a penny right now. And so we're hoping that stays dust. We're hoping that stays super cheap and super fast. And so when these new coins come out, they'll either MetaMask will add the Pulse chain network to its dropdown, or you'll have to manually just go in and add it. But once you do that, all of your coins will automatically show up in your MetaMask wallet. Now, that being said, and as much as we all use, like, that's all I use is the MetaMask wallet, Richard's he's talked about people developing an easier to use wallet that's a lot like MetaMask, but is better at moving and showing your balances and interacting with your other wallets or your other addresses, and interacting with the exchange better. So chances are, not only will it show, you don't have to do anything for these coins to show up, the copies, but going forward, we may have a better wallet that we want to move our seed words or our private seed into, and use that wallet instead. And it might be something like the Staker app that's on your wallet on your phone. It might be something like that that's just way more user friendly. It's more like a Facebook and less like, I don't even know how to describe MetaMask. I've used it for so long, I can't even think of what it's like. It's a weird document with a couple buttons.
Okay, well, awesome. That answers my question. We'll probably definitely be playing with that and go in there and look at that function and see what we can do with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be here, God willing, I'll be here on stream, and I'll be on Twitter and at the meetups. I mean, I'm going to be in Las Vegas in March 6th through the 9th. They're having a big Pulse Hex conference where they're hoping to have a lot of experts. They're hoping to have a lot of the developers there talking about how the code works and how to use it. There's should be a bunch of people with new projects that want to build on Pulse because it's faster and cheaper. I mean, right now there's thousands and thousands of coins and projects that are built on top of Ethereum, and they're not functioning because of the fees. There's stuff like computer games where you can buy and sell swords and things like that, or you can buy fake property in like another world, like the VR headset kind of stuff. There's all this stuff that's built on there, but in order to sell a $50 sword to someone that wants the sword in the video game, the fees are like $4,000. And so everyone's basically just halted developing and progressing on Ethereum because these fees are ridiculous. And so when Pulse Chain comes out, if it performs the way it says it's going to, we're not just going to have it. It's not just going to save Hex. It's going to save all the innovation that's happening right now on these different coins. So I'm really excited to go down to Vegas on March and get the inside scoop from there. And if I'm not lazy, I'll probably bring some equipment down and do some videos down there from Vegas. Because actually I'm going to be headed down a week ahead of time to help put the conference on, because I'm friends with the people that are doing that. And so, yeah, I'm going to be down there trying to get every little morsel of information I can as things roll out.
Okay, well, thank you.
You bet. All right, iPhone. You got any questions, iPhone? That actually might just be my wife, who usually just comes in and tells me I'm blabbering on. I need to wrap it up. Let's see here, Ryan. Okay, and if there's no more questions, I'm trying to think. There's one more thing in the back of my mind. I think I'm going to be doing those streams with Rags to Riches and David and anyone else, Balliet Brand. We're going to try to have like a hangout on Sundays, but we're going to try our hardest to keep it factual and information based, because we're so goofy that things get off the rail, our ADD kicks in, and we have to really like try to structure those to get through information as quickly as, and stick to what people actually want to know. And I think we did a decent job of that. And that's what we're going to try to do every Sunday afternoon. We'll be trying to do those streams. So I'm looking forward to that. And then there was a mattress store in East Kentucky that started taking Hex for their mattresses. And so I reached out. I actually just Googled the mattress store on my phone and called them and just started shooting the breeze with them. And they're two super excited hexagons. Like, they're really excited. They're going to be out there in Vegas in March, but I'm going to try doing a stream with them where they can, talk about how they got into it and what it's like trying to bring the hex into the real world with real people. So those are two things I'm looking forward to. And then I should be streaming with Crypto Heartbeat on the Freedom TV channel. So he's going to come on there and tell us about his Compassion Cartel and his charity that he's trying to set up on Pulse to help people. And then I should be streaming with Balliet Brown this week as well. So I'm just going to be trying to be out there as much as I can and try to build as big of a community as we can build and get as many inputs of information as we can get. So we get the best information as soon as we can get it, because that's really helpful and powerful and makes a big difference money wise in cryptocurrency. What about you, Ryan? You got something?
One other thing,
Yes.
with the split and the copies of the coins, the stuff that is already staked in the Ethereum, is it going to automatically stake in the other just the same? Or is that something that we're going to have to do once it happens?
No, whatever you have locked up on Ethereum is going to have the identical lock on Pulse Chain. So what happened was when you lock your hex on Ethereum, it's kind of crazy. What you actually do is, when I lock 100 hex for 10 years, basically those 100 hex are destroyed. They're what they call burned. And so those 100 coins actually stop existing, and in their place, I get a contract, or I get the code to a contract. And the contract says that I will get those 100 coins in 10 years plus interest. So when you go to unlock your coins, you're actually creating brand new coins out of thin air and brand new interest out of thin air based on the code and how much interest the code allows to exist. So really, you're going to get a copy of a contract on Pulse Chain that's going to be able to mint you your principal and your interest at a specific date. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a really good question, because a lot of people are wondering, what do I need to do? What do I need to get in place? What do I need? Like, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to miss out on something or have it just, time out. I want to make sure I'm on top of this. And so, yeah, that's the good news, is that most of this stuff is going to be done for us. And the stuff that's not done for us is probably going to be an improvement that you're going to want to take advantage of.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All right. Any other questions here? I'm proud of myself for remembering to record this one, because there have been nights where I have not recorded this, and it was just a really cool party that 3 people got to experience. So give myself a little pat on the back. And yeah, other than that, thank you. I honestly can't thank you guys enough for taking time out of your busy schedules and lives to come here and talk with me and figure some of this stuff out. It's an honor and a privilege, and I honestly I can't thank you enough. Let me see, going into the calendar, going forward, I should be streaming next Monday, and I should be at the my hometown library on the next 2 Thursdays. And then going into Monday the 20th, I'll be out of town, so I won't be streaming on Monday the 20th. And I'm also hoping to get some professional help with the email address, because people have been complaining about getting an email sent to 400 people with their name on it. It's not exactly professional. So my fake son-in-law is supposed to help me set up an actual email service that's easier for you guys to get information from. And another really good suggestion that was made to me is that I put a link for the last video in these emails. So if I send you a link, I'll say, hey, we're going to be on Zoom at this time, and check out my last video if you weren't able to make that one. So these are all things that I'm trying to put together slowly but surely. And again, I'm so excited about everyone that's into Hex and Pulse right now, because I believe I know what their future is going to look like for these people. So, and I'm just happy to share this moment with you guys too. So with that being said, I'm going to end the recording here.